Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teaching professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you again for joining us live this morning here on the Women of Golf Show. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic and very happy to be back here once again on air with you each and every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network. So I'm very, very happy, always excited to do these shows. Don't forget, we want to hear from you this season, so if you want, don't be shy and don't be afraid to call in during the live broadcast on Tuesday mornings. The number to call is area code 347-945-5855. And for some reason, if you don't want to call in live, but you want to reach out to either Cindy or I, you can do so by by emailing us at cindy@cindymillergolf.com, and mine is ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, so by all means, feel free to reach out. But we would really love to hear you call in live during the broadcast. So again, that number is 347-945-5855. We got a great show this morning, Cindy. We're going to start things off here in just a second or two with a great discussion on the 4 steps to mental mastery, 4 things to master golf and your mental game. And this is by actually golfpsych.com. So if you go and visit their site after the show, they've got a lot of great information. We're going to just touch just a few broad strokes, if you will, on some of the things that they talk about here in just a minute. And then a little bit later on, McKenna, the Director of PGA Golf Management at Florida Gulf Coast University, is going to be joining us on the second half of the show, so make sure you stick around for that as well. Okay, so Cindy, there are, I'm sure, many, many things, but Golf Psych actually kind of whittled down, if you will, 4 key areas to really developing a strong mental mastery, if you will, that any golfer, whether you're a professional or even an amateur, can certainly really adhere to. And we're going to talk about some of those this morning here. And the first one is, I think, really to understand your current state of your mind. And what I mean by that is obviously, yeah. I kind of laughed on that one too, the first thing. But basically what it's talking about is what's currently sort of occupying your mind. If you're getting ready to, as an example, if you're getting ready to head out to the golf course this morning, are you thinking about that sales presentation this afternoon? Are you thinking about, Valentine's Day is coming up here in a couple of days. So what's really your current state of mind? Is it clogged with a lot of clutter? Or are you focusing on the round that you're about to play? And I think that's important, Cindy, and you as a professional golfer who's played on both the LPGA and now the Legends Tour, obviously that's something important to you when you're getting ready to head to a tournament. The last thing you want to be thinking about is 20 or 30 other things that are going to clutter up and detract from really the business at hand. What do you do when you head out to the golf course? Do you do something specific to try to sort of clear that mindset, if you will, before you head to the golf course? Or what do you do?
It's all about your attention being on your intention. And I think it's about, what can I control right here, right now at this moment? And I mentally practice probably 2 or 3 times a day in my head. I just kind of shift states and go in la-la land in my head and say, okay, what are we thinking? What were we working on the last time you hit balls? Because, again, most people, golf is not their vocation. So you have to be able to shift states and change your mindset. And I think that this might help our listeners to say, okay, if I really pay attention to what I'm doing when I'm practicing, and I know what my triggers are or my thoughts or my process, then I need to I text things to myself so I don't forget them.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
and I think knowing, as far as what your triggers can be, are you audio, visual, or kinesthetic? Do you want to see it, feel it, or hear it, so that you can, what I call, dumb it down? And then once you know what that is, it's almost like, oh, well, there's a little file over here. And if I take this file out, then I can go play golf, and I know what to do because everything I need is in the file. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if
that makes perfect.
And then I can say, okay, you're not worried about answering the emails or writing a speech or what you have to do for this conference call coming up or a sales presentation or whatever it might be. You say, oh, I got to open this file right now. This is the only thing I'm working on. So if you focus your attention on your intention, I think that's an easier way to do it. And one more thing, I think I've heard an awful lot of people say that golf, my students, amateur students, say that golf is relaxing. I'm like, what? I don't think golf is relaxing. I'm like, I've never heard it said that way. But I believe,
right.
I've asked them, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, I can't think of anything else. So I'm focused on being on the golf course and hitting shots. I said, well, that's great. To me, that's not relaxing.
Yeah.
That's focusing on something different. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that you said. And I think to sort of, answer what your students are talking about, I think that's great. And I think that's exactly the approach you need to take. I think a lot of the biggest mistake and I'm sure you've seen this playing in a lot of pro-ams, the biggest mistake that especially our amateur golfers make is they've got too many thoughts outside of the golf course cluttering up their minds. And you're exactly right. You have to go there with an intention. Your intention obviously is to play golf. And if you can use some little mental cues that help you focus on that, whether you text them to yourself, whether you watch a video that sort of encapsulates some of the things that you need in order to play your best round, by all means, that's what you need to do. But as I said, if you're going out in the morning and you've got an important meeting or something that's coming up, it's probably not the best idea. Obviously if you're playing in a special event, that's one thing, but if you're just going out to play a quick 9 or something, you're probably not going to enjoy it very much if you've got 20,000 other things that are cluttering up your mind that are outside the golf course. A lot of people don't know how to shut that part of their brain down and focus on the task at hand. So that's really what we're talking about here is having an understanding of your current state of mind. Is where is it? Where is it thinking? Is it thinking about what's going on right now, the shot that's at hand, or are you thinking about something, next week or later that day, or something that happened last week? Are you still mulling over, a project or something that you've got to get done and you're falling behind? So there's a lot of things that can clutter up our minds, and I think what you said was spot on. So that's a great, some great advice for our listeners out there. The next one is really, and I want to kind of phrase this a little bit differently, and this is essentially how they put it, but I want to tweak it a little bit, and that is learning the mental profile of high-performing golfers, and I would say really athletes in general. And I think what they're really talking about, they're not saying that you need to mimic or that you need to copy what somebody else does, but that there are certain tips that you can take away. So as an example, we've seen a lot of great golfers over the years. On the men's side, of course, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, Annika Sorenstam on the women's side, and others out there that are very, very focused, and exactly what you were just talking about a few moments ago. So what are some things, do you think, Cindy, from your experience, do you think that we can take away from watching some of the high-performing golfers on how they handle themselves mentally out in the golf course? What are some things that you think we could learn from that?
Well, I happen to be golf psych certified, so I've got some inside scoop here of what's in the mental golf profile. So just to back it up for a second, Deborah Graham and John Stabler. Deborah Graham got her PhD doing research on the LPGA Tour and the PGA Tour for what makes great golfers great. So what they wanted to do was figure out if they had 3 different groups, focus groups. Everybody's on the tour. One group of people, I'm on the tour and I've never won. I'm on the tour and I've won once or twice, and I'm on the tour and I'm a multiple tour winner. And the question was, of these, the Cattell 16 PS, were any of these traits, there's 16 traits, did the multiple tour winners have anything above and beyond the other? There was yes. And there were 8 traits they measured that multiple tour winners have above and beyond everyone else. And those things are focus and mental pre-shot routine, calculations and commitment, emotional management, course management and a game plan, tough-mindedness, confidence, independent decision-making, and tension management. So if you're out watching a PGA or LPGA tour event, are you aware when someone is shifting states from I'm doing planning a shot and I'm trying to figure out my game plan, and then they shift states from think box to play box? So I think the more you watch what tour players do and become aware of their habits and their systems, if you will, the more you can learn. You know, they don't just automatically go up and hit it. I mean, I've had students say to me, I wish I didn't have to think. I'm like, well, don't think they're not thinking. They're thinking. They just do it quicker than you. Right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Again, I agree wholeheartedly, and I knew that you had were Golf Psych certified, so I knew that you would have some little better insight on this particular topic, obviously, than I would. But here's something too that I think that a lot of people don't appreciate. You know, they look at the golfers out on tour, again, whether it's the LPGA or PGA, and you know they focus on, well, wow, they can hit the ball, you know, far, and they can hit it straight, and they can shape their shots, and that's what a lot of amateurs focus on. But what they don't really appreciate is the good golfers, especially the ones that have won multiple times, are very good at time management. They take the same amount of time in their pre-shot routine for every shot. Now, obviously, there are some occasions where there could be delays that are happening on the course that could prevent them. But once they, again, get into that think box, as you suggest, if you were to take a cadence, if you will, of their pre-shot and count up the time, it would be, I mean, within a millisecond of one another from shot to shot. And then, of course, as you said, they shift over to the hitting box, if you will, or playing box when they actually execute the shot. So that's something that people need to understand. And that's why, you know, we've emphasized, you and I, Cindy, a number of times over the years on the show about the importance of having a pre-shot routine and having something that's consistent. And it doesn't have to be exactly as you see it on TV or another player that you may be watching, but you need to develop your own pre-shot routine because that will help with your time management on course and help you, you know, better prepare for the shot. Even if the shot doesn't come off the way that you hope it does, by executing that think box, if you will, and doing it in a consistent manner will greatly improve. It's not all about ball striking. That certainly is important, and you need to focus on that when you're on the practice tee. But when you get out on the golf course, you need to manage your time effectively, and that's what really good players do. Is they have very good time management skills. Would you agree with that? Do you think?
Absolutely. And again, they work on it. You know,
right?
I don't know that normal people. It appears to be so easy when we watch players on TV, but their whole responsibility, their only inventory is themselves. The only thing they're doing is working on themselves. So, you know, their nutrition, their fitness, their golf swing, their head, everything is all about them. And it's funny because I was watching the tournament this past weekend, and Scott Stallings was playing real well, and our son Jamie had played with him in a lot of mini tour events. And he said, you know, he's married with a couple kids, and Jamie tried to play for 2 or 3 or 4 years, I think 3 years. And he just, every time he would go to Q school, he'd miss by 1 or 2. And he finally said, you know, I think I want to use my finance degree. I don't want to do this my whole life. And so that thought came to me when I saw Scott Stallings, and I thought, this guy has been working on himself. Jamie's been a financial planner for 8 years now. So this guy's been working on himself for 15, 20 years, right? And
right.
Now it's really paying off. But how many people are patient enough, to believe in themselves long enough to allow the delay not mean denial, and they really work on this. And that's what you have to do to become the best in the world.
You're exactly right. There's a difference in mindset, I think, with the generations coming up now. And I don't want to belabor this point because I know it's, times have changed in that. But I think really the difference is we've developed into a society of instant gratification. And, we want everything now. We want it when we want it. And of course we want it right now. So, when you look at players who, maybe started out on tour 15, 20 years ago, they have a whole different approach than what you might see more current players, and especially on an amateur level. People just don't want to spend as much time on the areas that they really need to. They'll go out there and they'll hit a bunch of balls, but there's other areas of the game, like we're talking about here, that you can do, and you don't have to go to the driving range. These are things that you can do, and we're going to talk, and that really leads into our next point here, and that is to develop a structure for improving your mentality over time. And there are a lot of things that you can do, Cindy, in other words, you can throw pre-shot routine in there. That's developing a structure or something that's going to help you be more focused. And by doing that and being repetitive over time, as you just mentioned with the other gentleman, he's now coming into his own. He's been working on that for many, many years, and now he has a better understanding himself. And something else, too, that I think kind of falls into this category, and we've seen this, and then I want to get your thoughts on this, is, a lot of people have a difficult time going from the practice tee out on the golf course. And part of the problem is they don't create real type of situations on the practice tee. They just hit balls, and then they get out there and they're faced with, a whole different set of pressures. They're very comfortable back on the range, but on the golf course. So what I suggest, especially if you're playing with your weekend foursome, and maybe you guys like to put a little money on the game, do some things like that on the range as well. It doesn't have to be big dollars, but maybe just create something that puts a little extra stress or pressure on your shots on the practice tee, so that when you get on the golf course and you're faced with something like that, you've already prepared mentally for that. What are your thoughts about that?
I totally agree again. I also, to go back to the tour player, I think there's two things. Number one, kids start much earlier. So, kids are playing in tournaments when they're 7, 8, 9, 10, playing college, and golf is their life. So when they come out on tour now, they're more prepared than they were 15 or 20 years ago. There's much better junior programs. And to a fault sometimes, parents are like, oh, well, this is going to be the next Michelle Wie or Tiger Woods. But they have put in the time. It's that 10,000-hour rule. Everybody. Right. And that's what I think I love about golf is you don't get to show up and be amazing. You have to work at this. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how talented you are. I mean, you might find some parts of it easier than others, but everybody has to put in the time. The second part of it is that you have to have enough money to be able to stay out there when the going gets rough. And right. So if you do, and look at Webb Simpson. I'm good, I'm not good. I'm good, I'm not good. I'm good. There's ups and downs everywhere. But and I think that our students and our listeners need to be aware that no one hits it good all the time, and that you have to know that there will be delays and detours and distractions, and that if you can focus on a goal, or a structure, like you said, for improving your mental pre-shot routine over time, just become more aware. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And it's funny because we are doing boot camp and next week, and I've got 8 kids coming down from Buffalo. They've got the week off from school. We do it every year. And one of the young men was there last night. And I said, let's go over your mental golf profile from Golf Psych and your personality behavior style, which, I created a disc golf profile. This kid stays after school until 7:30 at night 3 times a week. And I said, why? Well, I want to make sure I get all my homework done. Why? Because I want to get good grades. I said, why? Well, because I want to go to a really good college. I go, are you kidding me? So they didn't come in for their lesson until 8 o'clock last night because this kid was staying after school. I looked at his father, and he goes, he's got like a 97 average, and he goes to a really good private school. Now, that child is so motivated by learning new things, and he's so conscientious. So I said to him, I said, look, sweetie, when we get to boot camp, I need to show you that your instincts are going to be to take a little bit too long to make a decision on the golf course. Your tendency is going to be to play slow and to think too much because you want to be perfect. And his father's like, oh, my God, I see him do that all the time in tournaments. I go, that's the way he is. Now, that's a good thing. That's better than not caring and just grabbing a club and swinging. Mm-hmm. But I said, we're going to have to find a balance here where we have your own process as to, okay, what's the yardage? What's my lie? What's the wind? Where's the trouble? What's my smartest play? What's the playable yardage? What's the club? Aim it and hit it. Otherwise he's going to be 2 minutes over every shot.
Right, exactly. And, that a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there are a number of individuals out there that fall into that sort of analytical pool where they overanalyze everything, and that creates, what do they say, paralysis by analysis. A lot of times you'll see even good tour players that are very, very analytical, and you can see them out on the golf course. And ultimately, those are the players that haven't gotten that under control that typically tend to have problems later on because it just – now, certainly they can have success out on tour, not to say that they won't, but a lot of times what happens is at some point in their career, they will start to, because of their analytical process, if you will, start to develop other issues later on, and they're not able to deal with those. Again, they're analyzing everything to death, so to speak. And it's a good thing, as you suggest, in some ways, but it can also be detrimental to good play on the golf course. And, if you're playing with a bunch of your buddies, they're not going to want to stand there while you're analyzing something for 3 or 4 minutes before you take a shot. So, you got to keep that in mind as well. And finally, Cindy, and you've kind of touched a little bit about this on the last one, and that is the ability to actively track your mentality and improvement over time, which you mentioned a few minutes ago about your son's friend. You need to be able to track and sort of monitor that process over time, and then look for certain areas that you see success from, and those areas that are, again, sort of detrimental to good play. And then you sort of mold them together and delete, if you will, hit the delete button on the things that are not working for you, and add them into the ones that are working for you into that sort of pre-shot routine. So touch on that a little bit as well, about tracking your process, if you will, over time.
I don't know. I don't totally understand.
Well, basically, what the point is making is being able to track your mentality and your improvement. So, in other words, keeping a record keeping, if you will. A lot of players go out there and they just, week in, week out, they hit balls. Sometimes taking stats, recording the stats on a practice round, that sort of information, so that you can go back and analyze after your round things that areas that you need to improve on, things that maybe you're really, really good at, and sort of pooling them together and using that data and information, if you will, to be able to chart your improvement over time. That's essentially what it's asking.
Yes, and I believe, again, I think sometimes we can overreact. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. I was fortunate enough to get into the French Lick Senior LPGA Championship in October. And as we've discussed multiple times on this show, that golf course at French Lick is just so difficult and so hard. And again, you can work yourself up and talk yourself into losing and playing like terrible. So, and then to top it off, it's 49 degrees, the wind's blowing, and it's raining. Okay,
right.
This is going to be fun, right? So the funny thing is for me, and, again, this is just me with Alan, who my husband's played on the tour for 15 years, and he's the Jason Duffner thinking type person, right? He said, the first round I played really well. I grinded my guts out and shot, I think, 79 or 78, something like that. And that was like in the middle of the pack. I mean, this golf course, somebody shot 90-something, which is very, very easy to do. So the next day, it was beautiful out, and I shot 84. I doubled and tripled the last 2 holes. And all Alan, so again, I'm like, oh, what's better with my swing? And Alan looked at me and he goes, you were not committed on any shot you hit.
Yeah.
And therefore, and we call it Cynthia, my, okay, look out, be careful. Oh, my God, my fearful protect person came out. So it wasn't a golf swing. And if you're willing to look in the mirror and really see what your issues are, you can fix them. People don't want to look in the mirror. But all those people on the PGA and LPGA Tour, if you're not willing to see your weaknesses, you might as well pack your bags and go home, because they're going to be exposed on the golf course, right? So the next day,
right, exactly.
got bad again, and again, I'm the grinding maniac, and I played pretty bad on the front 9, and I was 1 under par in the last 7 holes and shot 79 or 78, one of the two. And then I passed the world because, again, the weather was terrible. But it was all a mindset. Yep. It wasn't a swing thing. So if you're not able to really see, and I guess what I could say is, if I didn't have Alan with me to say that, I would have been working on my swing, and I would have never really focused on what the issue was trust what you're doing until you know what you want to do, and then commit to it. And if you miss it, miss it. And that's what he said. Cindy, you can hit the greatest shot in the world, and it can bounce off this green, and you're going to make a triple. And he's absolutely right. That's how hard this golf course is. So you've got nothing to lose, which was a great place for me to practice doing this. And I'm like, what are you protecting anyway? Let it rip. So, again, I think our listeners, if you are honest with yourself and willing to look in the mirror and see what your weaknesses are, then you can really, really improve.
Yeah, I agree, again, 100%. I was reading something recently in one of the online publications, I think it's golf.com, and they were talking about the 2-second rule. And I don't, the player that they were referring to escapes my mind at the moment, but basically, essentially, the story was that this particular individual, this tour player, has a 2-second rule. If they hit a bad shot, they've given themselves permission to get upset, whatever, and that doesn't mean they're whipping clubs or anything like that, but they'll express or eject that emotion, that negative emotion, for 2 seconds, and then once that 2 seconds is over, it's done. And
Absolutely.
That's something too that's something that is a really great tip for amateurs out there, because how many times, and even good players do this, Cindy, how many times have we seen players go out there, they've hit a bad shot, or they've played a really bad hole, or even a couple of holes, and they're thinking about that for the rest of the round. They keep talking about it, 4 or 5 holes down. Well, you remember that shot I hit back there? And they get faced with a similar situation on another hole, and right away they're replaying that loop. So I think that's a great tip as well. And that, again, goes to your current state of mind, is, get whatever negative emotion out of your system. Treat it like a mini cleanse, if you will, and get rid of it, and then move on, to what's next. So I think those are some good tips. And again, if you want more, again, we just sort of talked briefly on some of them, but if you want more information, Golf Psych is definitely a great place to investigate. So go to golfpsych.com, and it's golfpsych.com. And they've got all kinds of information there, not only for consumers, but also more importantly for coaches and instructors like ourselves, if you're interested in becoming certified, of course, you can get information on that as well with Golf Psych. So make sure you go and visit their website after the program. Very interesting discussion, Cindy, and a lot of great points that you bring up. And and again, somebody like yourself who's played on multiple tours over the years, you've had your ups and downs. You've had some very good moments. And Alan, really raised a very good point about your play at French Lick, because he obviously didn't notice a change in the way you played as far as your ball striking ability, but he noticed in the way that you handled your emotions from round to round to round. And that was something that a lot of times we don't see ourselves, and it takes an outside person. That's where a caddy comes in very handy, because they see how you play week in, week out, and they know, these tour caddies that have played with anybody for any length of time or have played out, have caddied out on tour for many, many years, they know how to read their players. And obviously Alan was able to read that in you and help you put together a better round on the final round.
Absolutely. And I'm
so
grateful.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah, if you've got a 15-year veteran of the PGA Tour who's played in 5 Masters, and the second purest ball striker Dave Pell's ever tested, maybe you ought to listen to him, right?
Right.
Again, sometimes it hurts too. Oh, that hurt, but it was the truth. So that's why I'm saying, if you're really wanting to improve and you're willing to look in the mirror, there's no telling how good you can get.
Right, exactly. Great discussion, Cindy. As always, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And as I said, for those listening to the show, afterwards, if you want to get more information about what we were talking about, you can go to golfpsych.com and check out their website. They've got a lot of great information there for developing that mental mastery. All right, we've got a very special guest joining us this morning, Tara McKenna, and she is the director of the PGA Golf Management program at Florida Gulf Coast University. She's also a dual class A member of both the PGA of America and the LPGA Teaching and Club Professional Division, an honor which, of course, is held by fewer than 240 female professionals in the country. Again, as I mentioned, she's the director of the PGA Golf program at FGCU since 2010, and she is the second director at that university and the only female PGA member serving in this role nationally. So, Cindy, let's welcome this morning our very special guest, Tara McKenna.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cindy. How are you?
I'm great. Meet Ted.
Hi, Ted.
Nice
to be here.
Good morning, Tara. How are you? Well,
I think I'm doing a little better because it's going to
us.
be sunny and 80 here today. A little better than where you all are.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually in Northwest Florida, and it's rained a little bit this morning, but it's clearing up, so we're looking forward to a good day here as well. Not quite 80, I don't think, but I'll take what we can get.
Excellent.
Cindy, why don't you go ahead if you want to start things off, and then I'll pick up.
So I want to know exactly what you do at Florida Gulf Coast University. Tell us, because you used to be the head pro up near Boston, and
Yes.
we did an LPGA workshop up there with you, and I've always loved everything you do, but give us a little insight into this shift of states of what you went from being the head pro to the big boss at the school.
Well, I always say I've gone to the dark side. I'm now joined academia, which was a total culture shock when you come from standard industry. I mean, for me to do what I do now, I mean, they can call me professor, which really seems odd, or they always say Miss McKenna, still sounds odd. But essentially, there's 18 programs in the country that are PGA accredited. They're all different public to private universities. They're all 4-year programs. And our students, when they enter, they earn a 4-year bachelor's degree, and the degrees vary across the map because of where the programs are located within that university. They could be a business degree. Our degree is actually PGA Golf Management. And when they get that bachelor's degree, they get out and they obtain employment, and they get directly elected to PGA membership, assuming they've completed all the requirements. One of the unique things in our program is our students do 16 months of paid internship over multiple segments all over the country, and they can now go internationally. So, and that bodes for all of our programs having 100% job placement. There's not many degrees at a university that can boast that. We're pretty darn close. There might be one or two that fall through the cracks that don't do what we ask of them or don't engage, but that's so not the norm. And what I do is I teach classes. I teach 2 classes a semester. So I'm creating classes. I'm creating assessments. I am delivering class, in class for 6 to 7 hours a day. We do a lot of mentoring. There's it's a similar hats that a golf pro would wear. You are part counselor, you are part instructor, you are part teacher, where our students have to pass the PAT to get out. So, and for those of you that don't know what the PAT, it's a 36-hole playing event that can be quite stressful to especially students who didn't play high school golf. And I'm in charge of hiring and training faculty. We're in charge of the budget. I have a secretary. Go figure. I never had that as a golf pro. And I'm like, I might have to delegate. Oh no. And I have a full-time internship director who serves as my assistant director. I'm involved on university committees, and I think I provide somewhat of a different perspective because I have not been 100% in academia, so I would say I kind of give why are we doing it that way perspective sometimes when I'm on these university committees. We're engaged in research. My student, one of my seniors, has used we have some pretty amazing technology here on campus. We have a body track, which is a pressure mat. We have a K-Vest, which is a biomechanical feedback wearable device. We have V1. We have 2 TrackMen. We have a SAM putt, which is TMI for putting. A lot of professionals have a SAM putt or similar in their own studios where they work on their game in the off season. Our students have access to all of this technology at their fingertips should they choose to engage. There's always that choice there. They have to in class, but there's plenty of students. We have a golf repair lab and assessing your own equipment, which to me is vital for any good player. And so we have all that stuff here at the university in our educational space for our students to engage and use. So I wear so many hats just like a golf pro would do up north, but they're just different.
Wow.
Does that do
yeah,
it?
Yeah, that's a lot of hats.
It is a lot of hats.
Let me just ask you something, just to follow up on that. You mentioned about a lot of the different technology and things like that that's available. Obviously, again, in the class format, obviously, it's a requirement for them to understand and utilize that. Do a lot of the students really get engaged outside of the classroom environment with some of the technology? How do they, how do they utilize that technology? And is it something that they really enjoy, or is it really something that they're not really, interested in as much?
When they first get here, it's just like anything new; they're afraid to touch it. But I think once, we'll do kind of introduction to Sam Putt. I just hired a new player development coordinator who is a PGM graduate, and he's been a phenomenal addition to our staff and holds lots of certifications. So now the students he'll do 15-minute TrackMan introduction just with your own golf swing. He'll do a SAM putting analysis for a student. So they're really getting kind of that one-on-one. It's amazing, with all the online delivery of education, students still want the one-on-one. It's amazing. I meet with families and parents every day with the technology and show them our lab space. And unless that facility has that technology outside, and there are more and more facilities, especially in Southwest Florida, that are building performance centers. One of our students and our graduates, he runs the performance center, and one of our students essentially works there full time, and he's the golf shaft guru in my book. I'm not worthy when he starts talking about shafts, and he knows every spec of every shaft and could just spit it out like it's secondhand to him. And so he's really engaged. I don't have students necessarily on that level, but I'd say there's a lot of interest that is growing with the advent of Club Champion, putting up shops in lots of places. And one of our graduates is one of the business development leads for that business. So I think it's more and more the technology on the television you see, the TrackMan, the top tracers of the world, that's really bringing all that technology to the consumer. And I think they want it in their lesson delivery on some level. I mean, not everyone's going to want it, but I think they like the information, and it certainly adds a tool to your toolbox as a teacher. And more and more students, as we survey them, want to get into instruction, which is really great to grow the game, obviously. And the students, they might need a little push, but once they get the push, they're all in. And my lab's always filled with students looking, tweaking their golf swing, playing with the numbers. They don't come out certified in TrackMan, but they certainly could if they wanted to. But the interest is definitely there. And some of them just enjoy playing virtual golf. You don't have to here in Southwest Florida, but they enjoy it.
Very interesting. Cindy, go ahead.
So, I know the answer to this. Do you really like what you're doing? And what is so different? What do you love about it? What do you miss? And give us the scoop.
Okay. So I love coming to work every day, and I'm working about the same amount of hours I would work as a head golf professional, but in a different way, meaning I have weekends off. What a concept. I have holidays off. I can take sick time, and I have vacation time. So now, like when I was up north, and I'm working every holiday, every weekend, which, again, I never complained about. I love my job up north when I was a head golf professional. But now I can actually go up north on vacation and enjoy myself and enjoy New England and spend 5 days on vacation and really just taking it all in versus like 24 hours here or 8 hours here type of thing. So what sometimes frustrates me in this job is sometimes they do things just because they've been doing it that way forever and have never evaluated why. And I think that's in any organization, but we are constantly evolving, at least in my program. We call ourselves the happy space because we are. We really, all of us has buy-in as to what we're doing. We're producing hopefully the best graduates in the country. I do still engage with the community, but I kind of miss that weekly, if I'm playing in pro-ams. I can't play as much golf, even though I have weekends off. It's social golf. But tournament golf, even on the LPGA level, the section championship is always like the first week of school. I can't miss that. The team championship is in December. That's the last week of the semester of the fall. So those type of challenges frustrate me because I really want to go play, and I want to try and beat Cindy when I do go play, which is always difficult. But, those are the things that frustrate me.
What's that, Cindy?
I said it's not that hard to beat me.
Oh, come on now. And I still can play. I always tell my students that if I can still beat half of you, you're in trouble. You need to work a little harder on your game. If you got a middle-aged, woman kicking your butt. So, and some of them say, can she even play? Because they don't see me play. I love to play with my students. I just don't do it that often. Like, can she play? What's that?
I'll vouch for you.
I can still play. I can still hit it. I hit it pretty far for a woman. So, and I have women in my program, which is great because I always say my program's run by two chicks, so I get more women in my program, and I can say that as a female professional. But one of the things that I look back on in the industry, had I had the mentorship and leadership that I offer my students, male or female, if I had that guidance back in my 20s when I was going through the PGA and the LPGA, if I had more of that from my industry peers, and there just weren't as many of us, and we didn't have cell phones, all day long and all the social media that we have here that's just so valuable to my students now going through this program. Who knows where I would have ended up. I love where I've ended up, and it's been a phenomenal transition for me, but I'm thankful that I'm able to provide that to the people that go through our program. And I use my networks like the Cindy Millers of the world, especially in the LPGA all over the country, to really guide our students to kind of find the best path they can once they're out of here.
That's great.
That's a great, I love that. Let me ask you, Tara, just another question here, talking about playing golf, if you will. While you were earning your bachelor's degree in psychology from James Madison, you were also playing Division I women's golf. Then in graduate school at UNC Greensboro, you relaunched the Division I women's golf team, while at the same time earning a master's degree in exercise and sports science, obviously focusing mainly in sports psychology. First off, talk a little bit about the Division I golf for women, but more importantly about relaunching that program. Obviously, you were integral in doing that. Tell us a little bit about the program.
Sure. Well, UNCG, which is for short for UNC Greensboro, when I got out of James Madison, I was very fortunate to get a full scholarship to go to UNCG, and just so happens that this is how small, how many few degrees of separation the industry is. My advisor in graduate school was the one and only Debbie Cruz, who has been prolific in her research, right? And putting analysis, and she's out in Arizona. But I mean, I was her lousy grad student. I look back, I'm like, I wasn't the best grad student, but I'm much better and I worked at the farm with Ellen Griffin and Mary Beth McGurr. But when I started that program, I was literally pulling students out of the hallways, so to speak, to join the women's golf team. And I didn't have the tools in my toolbox to be the best teacher, but I was better than what they had at the time. And then they brought in Mary Beth McGurr when I was getting ready to leave, and we traveled together on the team. But I mean, that team, and what's really interesting is one of the gals that I literally pulled out of the hallways, is now an LPGA member, which I think is just so cool that she got into the industry. And she was shooting 110 or so, and this is because it was a relaunch. The program was dormant for 10 years before I got there. They wanted, I think probably because of Title IX, they had to launch a women's golf team, and we were just transitioning from I think D2 to D1 at the time. So I'm ordering bags and doing all these things in uniforms and traveling and playing at the golf courses where I played in college. But we did, we traveled and played some really cool places down in Kiowa, and that was a challenge, but I really enjoyed it because I enjoy mentoring, I guess I should say, and that's probably the best takeaway that I've gotten by transitioning into this program. But when we're doing D1 golf, you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't know a whole lot. And what I've noticed now, because I do present at college golf seminars now, I present the PGM perspective, but I listen to the coaches, and I listen to this full-time job that D1 athletes, women, engage in between workouts and tryouts and qualifying and just playing and practicing. It is a full-time job. When I played college golf, you didn't have that sense it was a full-time job. And when I coached, we didn't have the training aspect and the physicality with the golf fitness perspective now that is so huge in our industry. We didn't have that. I wish we did have that. I probably would have played better golf because I just noticed when I got out of playing college golf, my best round of golf was the day I enrolled in the PGA of America training program. I didn't play great. I was not a great college golfer. But the team at UNCG has evolved under, full-time leadership now, because I was a grad assistant at the time. It's really evolved to a pretty strong team in their conference.
Very interesting. Cindy, go ahead.
So, how many people graduate through your program every year?
Well, we have about 150 students in our program, and I always say we have 1.5 faculty members. You can go to econ or finance or some other major here that might have as many graduates and have 8 full-time PhDs. So we're very lean and mean here, I say. I always call our program. We have 2 adjuncts that deliver kind of a specialty knowledge base. So our students, when they go through the program, is 4 to 4.5 years because of the internship component. If I have a transfer coming in, they can normally get out in about 4 years. But a true freshman is probably going to get out at 4.5. And because of the internship component. And every year, if our students graduating, I might, like, for instance, and we have what's called a cohorted model. And I had no idea what a cohort was when I took this job. But my students, when they come through the door, they start as a freshman right out of the gate. And from there, they take their very first PGM class, because PGA Golf Management's a mouthful. And they take one class a semester for the next 4 semesters. And they're taking player development to work on their game to pass that PGA playing ability test. And so I might graduate, I have a cohort of like 36 students. I'm going to graduate probably half of them in 4 years. And the other half are going to probably graduate either in the fall, but some of them might be double majoring, and they might graduate the following spring. So, we don't produce, I think the misnomer in our industry is that we're producing hundreds of graduates a year and flooding the employment market, and that is just not the case at all. And I think that there are golf professionals in our industry that think that we do just that, and the data shows the exact opposite. And right now, for opportunities right now in the golf industry is huge. And I say this because of the data. When you look at our membership numbers, our true membership numbers from a membership report, you're looking at we have like just under 25,000 members, and over half of those members are seniors. So they're over 55. And when you look at that, and then you look at we're at 8,000 facilities out of 17,000 facilities, right? 8,700 facilities that have a PJ member in some role. You look at that 5 to 8 years down the line, those folks that are 55 to 60 plus, and I think there's over almost 4,000 members that have 25 years in the industry. Our association is aging, which means for my men and women that are graduating from my program, their ascent to management is going to be way more vertical and a lot quicker coming out. And my students have a lot of and for women especially. Now I have 12 women in my program, and believe it or not, that's on the high side percentage-wise. There's not a lot. And what's really interesting from a female perspective, we will field 100 to 200 calls and emails, if not more, every year saying, hey, do you have a female? Hey, do you have a female? And
really?
Oh, yeah. And I would
love to come down there in the winter and teach golf.
Yeah.
Let me know if you hear anything.
Okay, you got it. We keep our eyes open all the time because I'm looking to always try to place women in the best opportunity, especially on internship. But when my women get out and graduate from my program, I always say they have that golden ticket like on America's Got Talent. They can go anywhere they want. And they are actually interviewing their future supervisors and saying, what are you going to do for me? It's a different perspective. And that kind of empowerment is what I wish I had when I was getting into the business, because I always wanted to be a head golf professional. My goal was not to teach, for my full time, although I did that on many winters for 12 years. I did that. But I wanted to run the show, and now I'm running the show. So it's really not that much different. It's just I'm doing it in a different context. But and Cindy knows me because that's my personality. I want to make an impact and think I can do a good job. And if I'm not, please tell me I'm not. And I'll change. So when my women get out, yeah, well, thank you. When our women get out, they can be so successful, and we're going to really help steer their ship in the right direction, but they can go anywhere. And I tell my men the same thing. I'm like, don't get a big dog or a needy partner, because you need to be mobile. You need to be able to go somewhere and make your mark. Don't be locked down by those two elements yet. Not yet. Because they're graduating. I've had the range of students in my program, it really ranges. I've had a 22-year-old and I've had a 57-year-old retired naval commander who used the GI Bill, and that's becoming more and more common, to go through our program. They call him Grandpa, but he's a great presence in the classroom, and he's great. And his last internship was essentially his full-time employment. He already had a bachelor's degree before he got here, and he's already working in his full-time job, and he's in, I would say, of a non-traditional setting, but he's loving what he's doing. And he graduate, and he's already working full-time somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic section, PGA, and loving it. just loving life, and he got out of this program what he came to do. And I think that's what we do really well.
Yeah. Tara, let me ask you just a final question, and then we'll wrap up. You've been talking a little bit about this, but do you think that the industry as a whole maybe needs to do a better job in explaining some of the employment opportunities, particularly for women? Most people, if you ask them on the street what they think of golf or what they know about golf, they refer to the tours. They know that there's the LPGA and the PGA and the different divisions and that, but they don't maybe understand, or they know that there's a golf pro at the local course, but they don't really realize that there's a lot of other opportunities as well. Can you talk a little bit about that as we wrap up?
Yeah, sure thing. The more and more of my graduates are looking to get into the non-traditional area of golf, but you're right. There's a lot of non-knowledge out there on the part of the consumer about what we do. When you say you're a PGA member or a golf pro, it must be great to play golf every day. Well, that's not
right.
true. I play if I'm lucky, I play once a week, and I still maintain my game. So my students have no excuse, right? So the opportunity to work in the golf industry, whether it's at the green grass or traditional, golf club of some nature, or some non-traditional jobs, there's so much out there where your golf skill, your high-level golf skill and knowledge, wherewithal, your customer service orientation will be successful in a number of areas. And that's what my internship director does. That's what I do. And for us to get the word out that there are opportunities by getting a golf management degree or a degree that gets your Class A, and I encourage our women to be dual and get their LPGA, because that's a whole nother element that just adds to their professional value. We can do that in my role as a director, and the other 18 programs that are out there. We all have that opportunity to touch the lives of some 1,500 students that come through our doors, and to put them out on the market as PGA members, hopefully if maybe LPGA members as well, but also college graduates. So there's so much out there that we do, that we work with. I work with other departments here, that help place these students in the roles they want. And I think your listeners or grandparents of listeners, the students who love golf and want to make that passion a career, you can do that at one of our programs. Whether it's mine, we have the best zip code, obviously, but there's 18 programs that do a great job out there, that work to push out hopefully the best, most educated professionals in the industry to move the needle in our industry forward. That's what we really need to do. Right.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and what a great point. And I think that it is important, and I hope that both the PGA of America and other areas in golf, the industry, it's great that we're focusing on the tours. It's nice to see all these different events, but there's so much more to golf than just the tours. And, I really hope that they begin to do a better job of getting that information out, because it is a great industry, and there are so many opportunities. Obviously for men, but particularly for women as well, that they probably don't realize are available. And I think going through a program such as yours is certainly a great start. Well, Tara, thank you very much for joining Cindy and I this morning. We thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, honey. I appreciate it.
You bet. We'll talk soon, Cindy. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Again, special thanks to our guest this morning, Tara McKenna, the director of the PGM program at Florida Gulf Coast University. Wow, what a great, just a lot of enthusiasm and obviously a major change, Cindy, to her, career, if you will. I mean, once a head professional, now, teaching the next generation of future golf professionals and business types as well. What a great job to sort of roll into.
Absolutely, and she's perfect for the job.
Yeah, a lot of enthusiasm, and obviously she really, as she mentioned early on, she really enjoys this phase of her career, and obviously it's a great fit. And the folks down at the Florida Gulf Coast University are certainly reaping the benefits of her expertise and her experience. And just one last thing, and it's funny, because both of you have mentioned this, and you and I have talked about this before. if you're wanting to play golf, getting into the golf profession is not necessarily the way to do it, because you know as well as I do, Cindy, once you get busy, teaching and or whatever areas, you don't always have as much time as you'd like to play golf. So when people say, oh yeah, I'd love to be a golf professional, get to play golf all the time, we know the truth is you don't get to play all the time as much as we would love to.
Absolutely.
All right, so you're heading off to your boot camp next week, Cindy. We got another great guest coming up on the show. So good luck with the boot camp. We'll get a bird's eye view, if you will, from that next week, and we'll also have another great guest. And we want to just again thank everybody for joining us this morning here on the Women of Golf Show. On behalf of Cindy Miller, I'm Ted Oderico. Thanks, everybody. All right, have a good one, Cindy. Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.